Hi everybody, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow for Expansions.com, and this is my news video for the very last week of October 2011. And it's been quite an interesting week. Many of you already know that in the northeastern United States there has been a tremendous snowstorm all the way from as far south as the mountains of West Virginia and North Carolina all the way to Maine and Canada. And of course, snow in October is not completely unheard of, but this massive amount of snow, and some places received over 2 feet of snow in the Berkshires of Massachusetts and in other parts of the northeastern mountains. But even New York City received a record amount of snow for October. Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., all the way across the New England and the mountains of Pennsylvania. So while it is unusual, it isn't unprecedented. However, we have to look at what we've been told in the last few years about global warming. How could a planet warming up produce more snow earlier than usual? So, Al Gore, you need to relook at your notes and maybe change things in the way you're stating it, because it's just not correct. And just a few days ago, the Rocky Mountains received a massive amount of snow, over 1 foot of snow in Denver, and more snow coming next week. And of course, snow in October in the Rockies is not unusual, but it hasn't changed. Global warming hasn't changed the amount of snow. In fact, we are getting more snow in more places than ever before. So, as I told you, an ice age is coming, and this winter, 2011 to 2012, is going to be a doozy. And those of you who received my newsletter, in my November 2011 newsletter, I do have an explanation about the jet stream and about the snow coming this winter, both in North America and Europe and Asia. So you want to check in on that and see the information. Another very fascinating thing that's happened this week is that Prince Charles, and I wrote about this on my website a couple of days ago, Prince Charles admitted being a descendant of Vlad the Impaler of Transylvania in Romania. And in fact, Prince Charles says he has a house in Transylvania. He seems to be very proud to be a descendant of Count Dracula, and I wrote about Vlad the Impaler on my site, stating how he would string up soldiers, townspeople, whomever he could get his hands on tree limbs, slit their throats or other parts of their body, and allow the blood to drip into his breakfast. And he would enjoy that breakfast out there on his property in front of his castle while his servants prepared the food for him and collected the blood. He was also known at times, when people would try to chase him, to disappear in the woods miles and kilometers away from his castle, and then appear in the castle just moments later. It would be almost physically impossible for anyone to get from point A to point B that quickly. So they decided perhaps he had secret tunnels or passageways under the mountains there. But even if he did, it still would take time to get from the opening of that tunnel to the entrance in his castle, and yet he would appear within moments. It is also known that when he was finally captured and imprisoned, I believe it was in Austria, or maybe Hungary, he was in a prison cell, and the guards would say that he would somehow, through his window, call birds into his cell, and the birds would come into his prison cell, and then he'd catch them and torture and kill them. He was not a very nice person. So it's quite interesting that Prince Charles would admit to being related to that person. And here we are, right before Halloween, and what an appropriate time for the shape-shifting Prince of England to admit that he is a vampire descendant. So keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this year and next year. When you see Prince Charles at the London Olympics in 2012 and at the Queen's Jubilee in 2012, think of Vlad the Impaler and think of what Prince Charles might do behind closed doors. Well, Another interesting story, a programming story, is, and I had it printed out so I could read some of it to you, there's something called the Juggalos, and maybe you've heard of it before. It's basically the fans of a group called Insane Clown Posse, which is a Detroit rap group, and they're famous for their clown makeup and their annual gatherings. But apparently there is a subset of followers who, according to the FBI, and I quote, behave or exhibit a gang-like behavior and engage in criminal activity and violence. And they're being watched by the FBI. They're calling them, and again I quote, a loosely organized hybrid gang, unquote. And apparently they create mischief and violence in various areas. The fans of this rock group go to the concerts dressed like clowns, but many of these so-called juggalos insist they just like the music and the community of the people involved in this group, and they say that they are like a family of people who don't belong elsewhere. So that's very interesting. You know, in my books I talk about people who have IS programming, who dress like clowns or jugglers, etc. And this kind of programming is quite severe. It can lead to death and destruction of the individual who may not pass a test that the internal programmer gives to them, and the test can be a matter of life and death at times. It's to bump you up to the next level to see how far you will go. So those of you who know about Juggalos, I'd be very curious to hear your comments on the website with this video when it's posted. And if you know of any other clown-like cults or subgroups out there that are also performing criminal or mischievous behavior, I would be very interested to know where they're located and what the motives are behind them. So until next time, this is Stewart A. Swerdlow for Expansions.com.